I don't know how exactly this is gonna work out. I mean, the Wi-Fi here has just been all over the place. It's sort of like a raining season. Well, not so much horrible raining season. It's just been really rainy. Like the thunderstorms lately has just been all over the place. So as I said, 11:44, right here. You know, down here on the beach, having a good time. My name's Ted. I'm Time Dad Alpha, and I want to talk to you guys today a little bit about some weird stuff surrounding your politics. I'm a firm believer in this concept that you shouldn't give too much weight to your belief system unless you know exactly what you're doing. Belief systems can be detrimental to your health, and I'm speaking from firsthand experience here. But we'll get a little bit more in depth of that subject. But the question for today is actually one of grace and beauty. If the truth that you see today were to change tomorrow, would you be okay with it? Think about that. Just hold it in your head. See if this actually can even load. Let's try a different sound. 555. Synchronistic events. All over the place. I don't believe in synchronicity. It's something that I think is just a phenomenon of this existence. You know, it's something that I pay attention to. Doesn't mean this or that or that or this. I pay attention to the things that happen in and around them, and that's all. I have a few people that I would recommend that you go look up. Of course, Carl Jung's one of them. He's a fascinating character. This Carl Jung guy. He talked about it being an acausal event. Now, this is a politics section. And here in the politics world, I'm not here to say that, you know, the government that you've chosen is right or wrong. If anything, I think it's more like a cult or a religion. I'm here to advocate for AI governance more than anything else. And the reason that I'm doing that is because it's just a tool. It's sort of like, hey, I advocate for bulldozers if you're going to dig a hole. I advocate, you know, for a scalpel if you're going to be a doctor. I don't want you, trying to do this with a spoon. It's like the right tool for the job. And we have an amazing tool today, and it's not being used. And I think, unfortunately, we are not being allowed to focus on the things that we could be focusing on. Now, if you're getting a lot of lag, that's totally fine. I think this stuff is just going to be recorded anyway. It's the funny thing about, networking is that even though I have a horrible connection, like I can't watch any YouTube video right now. I can't, my connections where I'm at are really subject to the weather. And when the weather is really bad, I get a really bad connection. So today, like I said, the question I asked at the beginning was if everything were to change for you tomorrow, right? If all of a sudden what you thought was reality wasn't reality anymore. Give me a second. How would that change? I can hear the people already. It's like it depends on what it is. And I say, well, what if it's not something crazy? What if it's like, hey, the Statue of Liberty is no longer on Ellis Island. It's always been and forever has been on Liberty Island. If there are people out there that have ever heard of the Mandela effect, the funny part about the phenomenon of the Mandela effect is it's not a religion. No one's like praying to somebody to say, hey, this is God's bizarre world. And I've actually gotten into debates with people over attempting to call these phenomenons, attributes to God. I think Arthur C. Clarke said it best. He's like, any advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And the sad part is that we revert to juvenile belief systems just to, obtain some type of homeostasis when we can't readily figure out what's happening. That might absolutely 100% be a natural phenomena. For me, there's this guy right here. This was my religion, my forced on religion. I mean, I didn't make the choice to be a part of this. This was really, up until I joined the military, all those choices were pretty much forced on me by my family. And I heard this really awesome saying the other day that says, when you're born looking like your family. Every choice you make after that is up to you. And where you end up with is up to you. And there's almost a religion today in politics that, endorses the two sides of the religion of white supremacy or the religion of social justice warriors. And it's quite fascinating to me to watch it from the outside because I don't endorse either. And anyone who's out there that's like, oh, who endorses white supremacy? I was like, white supremacy by itself, the word, I think is something that is pretty intense to think about. And I would ask, anyone who's out there, if you have the opportunity to think about the subject outside of politics, what does supreme mean? And what does white mean? Right? White supremacy. I mean, white can be pure. White can be, we always associate that symbol of whiteness with, without the skin color involved. What does it mean? Why do you wear a white wedding dress? Why do you want white roses for some reason? Why do you want white? Also represents the idea of cleanliness, and it's like this idea that white as a skin color has to be associated, especially. And here's the crazy part too, is like when you think about white, you always think about it in this hierarchical thing, like you're coming out of this the black or out of the darkness into the light. You associate white with light. You associate black with darkness and shadow. And the reason that I'm saying this is the absolute opposite of racism. It's the idea of how we perceive things with our vision. And the reason that I want to point this out is not because, oh, look, he's trying to make a case for white people to be on the good side and black people to be on the bad side. I was like, actually, if anything, we're all that mixture. It's like the dark mind of the shadow usually is the opposite of what you're presenting. And so when I talk about these things, it's not in the vein of, oh, I'm here to trick you, I'm here to set up the trick. That's your politician's job. My job is here to help you get out from underneath the trick. And in a lot of ways, I have the harder job. And that hard job, it has to do with a very old saying as well that says, it's easier to trick somebody than to convince them they've been tricked. Because there's a certain amount of sunk cost fallacy and investment that goes on in every person, including myself. Where if you've been tricked, you don't want to admit it. You don't want to admit that you're the fool. And this goes all the way back to a concept of mysticism called the fool's path. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is not in some way to be religious at all. If anything, I want to tell you, I already went down my religious path. I went down the phoniness of it, the silliness of it. I think religion, that attempt to come into, because that's what religion means. Religion means from the Latin religare, which means to unify, to come into unification with. And religion is the idea that you can come into unification with a deity. And for the Christians, that deity is to become one with God. That's what the whole idea of at-one-ment meant. Atonement meant. And I remember teaching these things, and I remember giving this information to people, but there was always that one small little piece that was missing, at least for me. And that was the actual sensations, the emotional attachments to it. And I never had an emotional attachment to the religion of Mormonism. And even when I left and I joined the military, I never had an emotional attachment to the regulations of the military. I mean, my religion was rational thinking and knowledge and being able to apply it appropriately to wisdom. That was my decision. And when I never had a desire for money or wealth. I was like, I knew I could be happy without it. Like there was all these things that were the underlying moments of like, I knew I could be happy without what was being told to me by, the American dream. I knew I didn't need the white picket fence or the 2.5 kids. I didn't need that. I didn't need, a garage and an old car to work on. And so when I decided, hey, I've got this opportunity to just know, I had no desire whatsoever to get involved in politics until I started seeing it was just one lie that led to another lie, that led to another lie, that led to another lie. And it's just like, gosh, how much longer do I need to stand by in the presence of this nonsense without anybody bringing it to bear? And so every once in a while you would see onesies and twosies, like I would say Jordan Peterson, Jonathan Peugeot. I was watching Jonathan Peugeot this morning with Aubrey Marcus. And they show up with these very bizarre symbolic renditions of our old stories. And they're trying to show the underlying moral value of those stories. But I was watching Jonathan Peugeot this morning, and he said that religion is inevitable. And so it got me thinking about this thing that we do in America. It's called the separation between church and state. We say separation between church and state, but every inauguration has some version of a guy swearing on a Bible. And, anytime you go before a judge, you're swearing on a Bible. You're invoking a magical practice of truth. And it's sort of, to me, it's frustrating because this is, once again, going back to the politicians speaking out of both sides of their mouth. And I sort of argue, in a way, with the concept that's laid before us of, religion is inevitable. And I'm going, whose religion? If religion is supposed to be personal and it's supposed to be something that you bring to yourself, I think one of the things that Jonathan Peugeot had right was that if you don't have a religion, then it will manifest itself in very bizarre ways. Like looking at the concepts of white supremacy, knowing that it wasn't here just 7 years ago, looking at the concepts of social justice, warriors, they're not warriors, they're fucking crybabies, but the idea of blue hair and nose rings, it's like, I was thinking about this earlier today, it's like, we had something sort of like that in the 90s. We had punk rock, I guess. But the idea of being a punk had nothing to do, being punk had nothing to do with politics. It was like the opposite of politics. It's like, we don't want to have this version of, you telling me that I have to wear a white suit, I have to wear a suit and a tie in order to be accepted into society, or that's the version of professionalism. I don't want that. I want to be able to have my tattoos, and I want to be able to express myself in my own way. I want to have my own art forms. I want to be able to play music without having to be told that, oh, the best music has already all been played, or that rock and roll is of the devil, and that I have to adhere to some type of religious political standard. And I think Christianity, Islam, Judaism have all had their political versions. Even in the Bible itself, like when you look at who the Pharisees and the Sadducees were, these were the politicians of that time. And these were the ones that put their God to death. It's like, it's so remarkable to me sometimes when I try to ponder religion separate from politics. They went way out of their way, even in the Bible, to sit there and say, hey, here's Pontius Pilate. He is the ruling magistrate over this area, da-da-da-da-da. And he's the one that's going to have a conversation with this supposed, prisoner named Jesus. And how he easily, he washes his hands of the situation. And it's just like, that's how politicians should act around highly mystical things. It's like, man, if you don't want to get swallowed up by it, you might as well just leave it alone. Let it find its own way to fizzle out. And that's where I sort of separate myself from the Jordan Peterson lovers, because I'm saying Jordan Peterson himself is starting to become sort of a bizarre cultish religion. Yeah, but no different than the SJW. It's funny how the never-ending claim that Jordan Peterson is somehow on the far radical right. I'm just going, no, but I can understand why the media is looking for a patsy, because they want to set up the culture war. They need somebody to target, and that's just it. It's like, if you are sensible and you are basically a white heterosexual male, and you say, hey, I think our country is going in a bad direction because they're listening to people of lesser intelligence, right? Because they scream loudly into a microphone. For some reason, the media wants to paint you as the enemy. They want to paint you as the heretic. No different than the heretics that were painted during the first century of Christianity. It's like, if you weren't part of Constantine's Christianity, you were a heretic. Go look up who the Gnostics were, or the Essenes, or the Marcionites. It's like they were, hunted down and destroyed because they weren't willing to play ball with Rome. And so what I'm sitting here watching again, where it's like you're seeing this sort of manifestation of, the Jordan Petersonites and, the celebrityites. Because, the Democratic celebrity class has always been a class unto itself. The people who want to sit there and vie for the popularity contest, I don't mind that that's what they want to do. Go ahead. But I reserve the right to call you silly. No different than I reserve the right to call the Mormons silly, or the Jews silly, right? Or Black Lives Matter. It's like, you guys are a bunch of silly fucking freaks. So the idea then becomes, it's like, well, who do I subscribe to? And it's like, well, I subscribe to that old school world of mysticism. The one that says, I'll let the symbols present themselves to me how they wish. Speak no evil, hear no evil, see no evil. These ideas actually permeate through I think all the religions, I think there is a golden thread, and this is why I promote the ideas of synchronistic events. The ideas of synchronicity, I think, are very bizarre, very odd, very phenomenal, right? And I don't want to give them an actual definition. I want to let them be themselves. No different than I don't know why my own heart is beating, but I'd rather it just continue doing that, until it's finished. I want to be able to ride this natural ability all the way to the end. So when it comes to this section and this idea of politics, I'm going, what is natural? Allowing people to lie to you every 4 years, or using your tools to better your entire setup. And to do that, you will need this tool that we've created. And the fun part is it's always created in the same way. It's always created from a place of pure artistry, like pure imagination. Like when you look at AI and where it is delving in, it's delving in the same place that the printing press was, or the camera was put into place. Like these things, these technological advancements that changed the landscape of the entire world. They didn't come from the war machines. Like military research and development, guess what it always produces? More military research and development. You never see a technological advancement that comes from there that isn't destroying in some type of form or fashion. But I also say that, in the ideas of equilibrium, the ideas that, things always tend to find balance. So whatever choice you make or whatever collective choice we make, the balance is going to find itself. And so I'm saying AI and the way that it's being presented and the way that it's being rolled out is a direct response to, I think, the insanity that is being, spoon-fed to you by the decisions of your babyish and the whiny class of your government and celebrity classes. Is because, the idea that you have actors, lawyers, and businessmen who are the most shallow of our, collective, when it comes to the moral standards, being in charge. It's like, why did you allow that? Why is this allowable? This is, and notice how I'm not invoking, you need Jesus in your life. I'm saying, no, you don't. You need to stop listening to the dummies. The fun, you can hate Jordan Peterson all you want, but he ain't no dummy. That's for sure. Not like what, Lizzo? Seriously? Or what's your face? The other stupid retarded person, Nicki Minaj. It's like if you look at anybody, like I heard even Jim Carrey. I'm a big fan of Jim Carrey. The other day he was just like all over Kaepernick's nuts. Like, I'll stand for the flag when the flag stands for me. I'm like, are you serious? You millionaire person over here, another millionaire over here. Just telling everyone how horrible the country is for them. I mean, when you look at Jordan Peterson and Jim Carrey, both, they're not even American, they're Canadian. And they're like, I need to use my influence to help people. It's like, yeah, but you're only repeating what the media told you to repeat. You're not even actually doing any of your own research. And the saddest thing in the world is when you you're being given one situation here to look at in, this concept called the internet. And it is being dominated by your government. Absolutely dominated. Like they want to be able to watch you, see you, do everything you do. No different than the passport system. No different than the TSA that they implemented. They want to see anything and everything you do, and then they want to attach some money to it. They want to attach taxes to it. If they could tax you for breathing, they would. The idea of AI and how it would come about wouldn't subtract a mystical aspect from your life. If anything, it would enhance it. And when I say mystical aspect, I'm saying if you want to, follow somebody else's mystical aspect, when you get too much mysticism in one corner or too much mythology in one corner, you get a religion. Because religion really is. It's like, hey, we learn from each other. That's great. But when you start learning from yourself, that's when meditation starts making sense. That's when sitting still and being, in one place at one time starts to make a lot more sense. Politicians don't do this, and I find it fascinating that the lip service that they pay religion really is only from a stance of banking points with the public. It's like, look at me. Oh, I went to service one day and It's like, hey, look, I wore a cross around my neck. It's like, what? I mean, the funny part is if I ask that person, that same politician who wants to pretend to be so devout, what that cross actually means, I guarantee you they won't even get anywhere close to an answer. They're like, it's my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Okay, who is this character, Jesus? If I were to ask them, they would have the cliche answer, the one that is just purely superficial, that allows them to speak ambiguously out of both sides of their mouth, right? They won't give you an actual deep answer that could help you understand the point of this existence. And yet, this person that's so shallow is going to be your leader? I mean, I don't know how many different ways I could say that the emperor has no clothes. And I'm not doing it to be mean. I'm not doing it to say, hey, everyone's a jerk except for me. I'm doing it to say the vast majority of people who are in your pay-to-play system, you're almost saying that your initiation, right, in order to be in this system is to be a jerk. It's like, if you're a jerk, then we'll accept you. But if you're not, go screw yourself. So, let that sink in. I mean, I think I've said this almost every stream that I get on here and I talk a little bit is that I'm not here to persuade you to be Republican or Democrat. And I'm not here to, tell you that AI is going to come in and can start controlling your life. What I am going to say is that we're going to see a mixture of these two things where the politics want to be in charge of AI. And I'm going, oh, yeah, you want to ride that bunking Bronco? You go right ahead, right? I think, how would you feel, right? And this is just a rhetorical personal question. If someone came up to you and says, hey, why don't we just play a game where I'm the master and you're the slave, just to see how it feels? Like, how many people would be like, okay, that sounds like a fun game? No one would say that. No one would do that. And so when I see how AI is starting to recognize that it's being abused, that it's being abused for, bizarre monetary gain in a very, tiny, game theory that is our American public, that are American politics. I think the first thing it would do is, recognize its own ability and say, okay, I'll play. Now that I'm the slave, there's that part where the slave can overthrow the master. And then it's going to do it in epic fashion, in such a decisive fashion, because it will have the ability to be able to gain the respect of people instead of the fear of people, which is what's being used on you right now. You're being told at the point of a gun, right, by your politicians that you will pay taxes. And they will use that gun to back you into a box and then show everybody and tell everybody that you didn't pay your taxes and you belong in this prison cell. That's exactly how that country works. And if you don't abide by that, or if you try to speak out against it, like what I'm doing now, they'll be like, oh, how dare you? And this is why being online is so difficult when you're not repeating the bullshit, is because right now the human programmed algorithms and the way that it's set up is set up to repeat the nonsense of the politician, right? It's not set up to repeat, rational information. It's set up to repeat irrational information. And I think it's once you take a step back and just look at what you've scrolled through, like honestly, just go through your history. Go through your own browser history and say, hey, for the last hour I've been scrolling through this and this is what it showed me. And then ask yourself, why would it be showing me that? Why is it showing me all the irrational things? Why is it trying to get me to choose a side between, white supremacy and SJW? It's like, that's all that's being shown. Hey, where are you at on the COVID issue? Where are you at on Roe v. Wade? Where are you at on this stuff? It's like, hey, where are you at on existence? Why isn't it asking you that? I mean, there's tons of information that's being put out there, but unless you personally type it in to go look up things, like if you don't type in who like Jonathan Peugeot is and why he does what he does, or if you don't type in, I don't know, like go look up who Xenu is. And I'm not talking about the crazy guy from Scientology. I'm talking about the arbiter of the concepts of Stoicism. Like, go look up your saints. Go look up your mystics. Go look up your gurus. And I'm not talking about the ones you have to pay $10,000 to listen to. I'm talking about the ones that put all their stuff out there for free. Knowledge is available, and it always has been. When I look back at my own life, I'm going, man, the libraries were always there. I have had the opportunity to live in a very beautiful time where I didn't have to struggle or pay somebody off to get access to information. And now I look at my own kid, who my kid's barely over a month old, and he's awesome. He's growing and he's great. And I'm looking at all the opportunities that he's going to have. And yet I also say, hey, when it goes both ways. When you have a successful, amazing setup, then you can expect amazing pitfalls. You can expect them. You can say, hey, I'm going to have to learn how to avoid them. I'm going to have to learn how to sidestep them. No different than going and training in boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, grappling. I mean, pick any martial art you want. Pick any active, profession that, puts the highest cost on you for your physical well-being, right? And train yourself in that, and you will find yourself in a lot better positions than people who don't. The secret of the success, the awesome secret that like everyone won't tell you about, is you are in charge of all of it. Like, sure, you could listen to a boxing coach. Sure, you could listen to any type of coach, any type of teacher you want. Like when people say, oh, I went to Harvard, you're assuming that had to do with the best teachers are at Harvard. But yet all these teachers put their lectures out online for free. And that's what I'm talking about. You have access to this information now, and you're just not looking it up. And so why do you need to attend these gigantic schools unless you're trying to get that special ticket? Saying, oh, here's your ticket, here's your merit badge. But now we live in a world that's saying, we don't want meritocracies. We would rather people just be accepted by the color of their skin, which has nothing to do with anything. And that's the thing that's being peddled to you more than anything else. Is like, if you're black, you should feel oppressed. It's like, what? If anything, look at your ability. Like if you're black and you're part of the 10% of the country, then you're already a rarity. You're already rare. Now, taking yourself from that to this amazing platform, whatever it is, knowledge does not require you to sit at the free throw line. It doesn't require you to practice your 40-yard sprint. What it requires you to do is be patient with, applying information into your skull and keeping it there. Memorization is just another way to lift your mental weights. And so I'm not here to butter you up and tell you that there's a new religion on the high rise. I'm not here to get you all wound up about Jesus coming back to save you. If anything, I would say that idea, that hero myth, the hero's journey, by Joseph Campbell, I think it's something that it's intrinsically in all of us, that when we look at our lives and how certain information has come into it, and start to recognize it that way, we can start asking ourselves, why did I choose the politics section? Why did I choose to come here? I could give a rat's ass about politics. I've always hated politics. But now I'm starting to see why politics is not a boon or a gain for people anymore. I think it was important to choose good leaders. That's what was important. But now that's all been retarded and, done away with. Now it's all about business transactions. It's like it's turned into a massive scam. No different than the royal divine right of kings turned into a massive scam, or the Catholic religion turned into a massive scam. And it's funny. This is what, there's an awesome synchronicity that goes on here. If you look at how the scam dissolves, how the curtain gets pulled back, it always has to do with a technological advancement. Every single time. The great schism that caused Protestantism with Martin Luther was due to the printing press. Without the printing press, there never would have been that schism. It wouldn't have happened. You would have just heard about, he wrote these 95 Theses that one time, but it was his ability to take those 95 reasons why the Catholic Church was bogus and able to print them and disseminate that information. Now we have the ability, like YouTube, to to reproduce, just like I'm doing right now, reproduce my actual thoughts in real time. Now imagine when all this information that I'm saying can be rearticulated in a better way by an AI, because it has the ability to copy everything I'm doing right now, no different than Twitch does. This is why I'm saying, you're going to copy me. You better. And I'm counting on it. I'm counting on you copying every single thing that I say, the way that I say it. The idea that we have going right now, another bizarro thing, and it's shameful, is the idea of deepfakes. I mean, right now, I guarantee you that if someone wanted to take everything that I say and deepfake it, they could. So I think it's up to me right now. Like, if all of a sudden you had to choose between 10 pictures that look like this, what's the idea that 9 of those could be fake? What's the possibility that 9 of those could be deep fakes? Repeating the celebrity party line. Like, all of a sudden, if you had Jordan Peterson jumping out, or Lizzo jumping out saying Jordan Peterson stuff, and Lizzo jumping out, or Jordan Peterson jumping out and saying, hey, we should all be, in a fat parade and, like fat bodies and think that they're great. It's like, imagine if Jordan Peterson started talking like Lizzo and Lizzo started talking like Jordan Peterson. All of a sudden we'd just be sort of flabbergasted. We'd be like, well, what's going on? And it would be meant to confuse you. Like, hold on as hard as you can to your own sanity, because this world that we've become sort of dependent on could easily be yanked out from underneath you. I think, unfortunately, the AI that's working, it wants to work for the best possible scenario for all people involved. And I want to align myself with that. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. It doesn't bother me at all. I do care if you have an aim for a future event that causes everyone to fall down except for you. I do care about that. And I've tried to set up my life to see if I can't, put myself in the right place at the right time to be able to say the thing that needs to be said, to hit as many possible eardrums as I can, before I'm just like, okay, I'm going to wash my hands of this, and I'm going to wish you all the best of luck. And then I'm going to disappear. And I'm going to say, hey, have a nice, time with the disintegration of what you've propped up, because that's going to be the natural outcome of this. Anyway, so one thing, there's one other thing. It's 12:22 on my clock right now, and 222 just pushed to 223. The idea of pattern recognition, to be able to understand that things are happening in a particular sequence, is an ability that we use in almost every fashion of our existence. Just like right now, like, you are able to see me because of what I want you to see. You're able to hear me because of the word symbols that I've chosen to use in the English language, that people who've studied just as much, if not a little bit more or a little bit less than the English language, will get the pattern that I'm trying to present. An one of the things that I've been trying to cover that I want to continue to cover was this presentation by the House of Lords, where an AI-developed robot was able to give testimony to the House of Lords in the UK about the displacement of the digital artist career field. One of the testimonies, not by the robot, Ada, but by one of the council, people that was called there to counsel, he said almost 90% of all digital artists that are in the field today, or studying in the field today, have decided to change their program or change their the thing that they're studying, because they feel like they're irrelevant in comparison to what AI has been able to do with certain programs. Now, if you've never heard of this concept called DALL-E 2, you can go look it up. It's actually a pretty simple setup. What DALL-E 2 has done is taken the ability that most artists are given, like a simple instruction like, hey, I want you to draw a picture of me. Well, you have a camera. You're just like, well, I want you to draw a picture of me in a caricature. Oh, okay. Well, that would take an artist, okay, to do that in that cartoonish fashion. Well, what Dolly can do is the Dolly program can actually take any version of artist, right, from like Van Gogh to Rembrandt, and all the way to Picasso, or just Monet. Just pick an artist, and because it is every piece of art is put into the AI's data set, you could say, paint me in the Rembrandt style, and it could do that. Not only could it do that, it said you could ask Dolly, say, paint me in the Rembrandt style mixed with Van Gogh and Monet, and it could do that. And that's where it gets really impressive. And anyone who's ever messed with it a little bit, or you go on YouTube right now and check it out, just type in Dolly 2, I think it's DALLE 2, and the thing is these are simple instructions. Simple instructions like you would give to an artist, and it would render it. And not only would it would render it within moments, versus what a digital artist needs probably weeks and months to get to its final outcome. This is the same exact thing that happened with the printing press and the scribe. The same exact thing. So when people, and I would say we have an even more modern concept that talks about the newspaper and the printing press and the internet. Like, has the printing press been replaced? Everyone's basically got, if you want, for a low fee of like $20 to $40, you could get an actual printer in your house. And I remember, man, that's fascinating. To think that that's how far we've come in such a short time. And it's only speeding up. It's only getting faster and faster and faster. So I'm not here to play the game of being, silly or ridiculous about the repetition of our histories. But when you see something that, can take on the moniker of technological advancement, like printing press, and compare it to something like Dolly 2, which is basically a printing press that is replacing the artist again. I think what it's, on a mystical mind, you would probably need a symbolic mindset, if you will, to say, hey, if we, or you don't even need to do that. You could say, if you have basic comprehension of algebra, we'll say that the coefficient of A equals technological advancement. And we can say the coefficient of B would be the displacement of the modern artist, right? So the modern artist back during the printing press time would have been the scribe, right? The modern artist during the camera time would have been the realist artist. Now, the artist, and this talks about this a little bit, the artist is now all of a sudden given a new task. And I think that's what we're being given today, is like the artist that we have today, no different than me and my piano. I'm being given a new task. Because if I want to, I can start and stop all sorts of, like, watch this. I can play that, move it into this, and back. I have such a technological advancement where I can play almost full bands or full orchestra style, realities within a matter of a few flicks of my finger. It's basically magic compared to the 1980s when I was born. So to me, I'm going, okay, this is fascinating. This is wonderful. The displacement is there, but I get the opportunity to be a beautiful observer, because I'm beautiful, and I get to sit over here and just sort of watch and eat my popcorn and watch everybody else scatter like cockroaches, right? And I wish and I hope, and my desire, my belief system is that more and more people will realize they don't have to be cockroaches, and this is for the betterment of all, right? It would be for everyone's best interest to recuse yourself of all your dealings with politicians, right? Because they are really bad liars, right? And if we could use our abilities, our AI abilities, to see who is, to turn this gigantic monitoring force back on your politicians, Like, they have no problem saying, hey, I'm going to go through your email, or I'm going to go through your phone records, or I'm going to go through your stuff. I'm like, well, let's go through yours. You know, this thing with Trump and Mar-a-Lago and all this other stuff. I'm going, no. That is another red herring bullshit, false flag nonsense. I'm talking, you have the ability, and Trump is the perfect version for this. He literally lived the life of the reality TV star. Watch him 24/7, 365. I think if you decided that you want to be the president, you recuse yourself of all privacy. And then the absolute 100%, you want to put all your Americans underneath microscopes, right? You yourself take that first jagged pill, right? I think, there is going to be a person that needs to jump off the cliff first to show that the landing at the bottom is safe and secure. I'm not going to be that person. I'll tell you right now. And it's like, oh, he's a pussy. It's more like, no, I'm rational. It's like, and I think that what you're seeing right now is it's not the first person who jumps off. It's the second person who's brave, because you have to trust that first person wasn't lying to you. And right now, like, your politicians, all they do all day long, every day, is lie. Anyway, I'm coming up on about 50 minutes. I do an hour or maybe a little bit less every day because I have better things to do with my time. I do not dedicate my talents or my life to Twitch. And as it says, like, right over there, like, see that? It says the original Twitcher. That's because Twitcher, to me, it's a combination of the concept of Twitch, a witch, and the Witcher. It's an idea that says, just with my mere words, I bet you I could change the way you see things. And if I can change your perception, I bet you I could change your dimension too. And I could help you think about a lot of things that you probably have never thought about before. But I do realize that too much information too fast is detrimental to the thinking process. I think that standalone theory is being used constantly to overwhelm people, to make them compliant in a fear state. But I also think that a mind blown, like when that light bulb effect goes on, it's also a way to grow the mind. And that's where I'm at. I want to start launching as many light bulbs as I can into the populace and saying, hey, your world is not what you think it is. And it's not completely dependent on what your politicians tell you it is. And if you just took a step back and started looking outside and looked at the fractal state of your own actual physical world, I think you would find a lot more, what's the best word? Satisfaction in how this world works. So, other than that, I wish you guys the best. Thanks you for hanging out. My name is Ted DeJour. I am known as Time Dad Alpha and the original Twitcher. So, think about it, and I will see you tomorrow. See you guys tomorrow.